Hello. If you're following along, in our last video, what we did was we looked at how to run individual lines of code that were JavaScript inside the browser, and that is using the console. So if I hit Command-Option-I inside this browser here, we have our console, and I can do things like console.log, and I can say hello, right? And so what that does is that runs a single line of JavaScript that executes. Great place to test it. But what happens if I want to put JavaScript as part of a web page? And what we've talked about is that, JavaScript can be used for things beyond web development, but that is what we're kind of focusing on in this case. And that is where JavaScript originally started. So it was a language designed to run inside browsers. So to do this, I need to have some sort of integrated development environment that is somewhere to write the code. And we're going to use in this video Sublime Text. I really like Sublime Text. Some people don't. I think it's important to understand that all IDEs have their different benefits and pitfalls. It's about picking the right one for the right situation. Sublime Text is nice because it's simple. It's pretty clear, especially as a beginning programmer. So I'm going to download and install this, which I've already done. And once I've done that, all I then do is I'm just going to open it up and say Sublime Text. And so now I have Sublime Text, and this is where I can write a whole bunch of different programs. And I can program in a variety of languages, but I'm going to develop specifically an HTML and a JavaScript file here. So I'm going to do this on my desktop. It's really important to make sure you organize yourself and keep your code in one consistent place. What students often do is they just start typing right inside of Sublime Text, and then before long, they have all these files and they don't know where they are. So I call this the workflow. So I'm going to make a new folder this first time. This folder is going to be called demo code. And now what happens is every time I come to I decide I want to program, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to have my Sublime Text open. I just take this folder and drag it in, and there we have it. So now what we have is we have this folder, and we can see what's inside this folder, and I can then develop files and work on files inside here. I'm just going to open this up and pull this over here to the side just so you can see some things as we kind of move forward with this. I'm just going to pull this up here and organize, and you'll see something. And we're just going to shrink this a little bit. There we go. All right. So the next thing I want you to do is now we have this nice work environment. We're kind of set up. We're going to create two files. The first file we're going to create is we're going to right click on this demo folder here. We're going to create a new file, and I'm going to save this as, and I'm going to save it as index.html. Now notice that it says here where to save it, demo code, and that's that part of the computer here. What often happens, and let me just hit cancel a couple times to get rid of this, what happens is students will come right up to the stop, they'll say file, new file, and then when they try and save it, oh, they've updated this. That's great. Now that it knows. But in the past, it used to put it in the wrong spot on your computer. So I always like to right click right on this folder, say new file, and I'm going to say file, save as, and I'm going to save this as index.html. And when I hit enter, watch over here on the screen, there it is. I'm going to make another file, new file, I'm going to save as, and I'm going to save this as index.js. And so now I have these two files. I have this index.html, which is what gets loaded on the web page, and I have index.js is where I can put specifically JavaScript code to execute. We're going to start with this index.html. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the basic template of what all web pages can start as. And to do that, if I put H and I hit tab, so what I did, again, just to show you how I auto-completed quickly, I open up a diamond bracket, put HT and hit tab. It basically builds out what every web page needs in order to run. And so it has an open HTML tag and a closed HTML tag. It has an open head and a closed head tag. And essentially this is where I put my content of my page. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give this title, I'm going to call it a web page. And I'm going to come into the body, and this is where I write most of my content for my page. I'm going to tab this in. Oh, pardon me. Tab, and I'm going to put a P tag, which stands for paragraph, and I'm going to put a web page. Again, if you're just learning how to program, this looks like a lot, and I want to acknowledge that. But don't worry. The more we do this, we'll constantly come back and reevaluate what different things mean and go into a little bit more depth. So now if I save this, and I come over here and I double click, it's going to open up this web page. So I double click on it. There's our web page. We can see that inside the title, see here the title tag, there's my opening of my title tag, and there's the closing of it. I have a web page, and there's the title, a web page. And then inside the content of the page, inside the body, I have a web page, and there it is, a web page. Really want to try to drive a couple things home right now. Please put the content inside the body of your page. Note, I could take this and I could actually put this up here if I wanted to. And if I could save this and I reload this, and it looks exactly the same. However, there are things that we do now that are really important from a best practice kind of approach. And right now, the first thing I want you to understand is that whenever I'm writing any of this stuff, any HTML content, I'm going to put it inside the body tag, unless I have a specific reason not to. Okay, so now we're going to save this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate the closed body tag, and that's right here. We see here this is the opening body tag because it says the word body, and then the slash, the / body means this is the close tag, and I'm just going to go right above it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab in and add a new tag called a script tag. And notice when I press enter. Oh, let's try this again. I'm going to put script, and I hit enter. Oh, I left a p tag in there. I don't know why. Now I have my script tag. This is my open script tag, and this is my closed script tag. And anything in between the script tag is going to be interpreted as JavaScript. So when you load this web page, it's going to start at the top and execute line by line as we go down. And then when it sees a script tag, it's going to say, oh, anything inside here, I'm going to execute as JavaScript. So let's write some JavaScript in here. So I'm going to say console.log, and I'm going to put hello world, just like we had before. We're taking what we did in that last video, we're just doing it here. We're going to say alert, we're going to say hello world, and then I'm going to say x equals 9 plus 1, so I've made a variable called x, and I've assigned it the value of 10, because I evaluate the right-hand side and then put it into whatever values on the left. I'm going to say alert x, which is fine because x has been defined. And then I'm going to write in the word document, because this is what we did in the last video. And I'm going to save this, and I'm going to come back in here and load this. And notice I get my alert, I get my 10, and the web page loads. And let's actually pull up, here's the console here. I press enter, loads. Now you'll notice here that if I type in the word document inside the console, and I press enter, it actually shows me the HTML code. There it is. But in our Sublime Text here, here we wrote the word document, but it didn't show up. And that's because it's important to understand, when you execute code, JavaScript code inside the console, it works just a little bit differently. So in this case, if I wanted to actually print out the document, that is all the HTML, I'm just going to do a console.log, and I'm going to console.log this document. So if I save this now, and now I reload it, there's my 2 alerts, and there's my document, and I can kind of do what I want with that. All right. So at the start of this video, I made 2 files. I made an index.html and an index.js. And so sometimes, we might want to write script inside of our index.html. But more often than not, we actually want to take the actual script or the JavaScript we're writing and put it inside a different file and call on that file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this code here. I'm going to copy this code and delete it. And I'm going to delete these script tags altogether. And I'm going to save this. And now I'm going to come into my index.js and I'm going to paste it. And I'm just going to highlight it all and pull it back so there's no tabs in this case and save it. So now what I've done is I've taken the script content and I've taken it out of my index.html and I've moved it to my index.js. And everything's saved. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to reload this page, but none of the JavaScript gets executed. The reason that none of the JavaScript gets executed now is because there's nothing linking this index.html to this index.js. And the way we do that is I open a script tag inside here again, but I add a little piece inside the opening tag, and that's called src or source, and I say the source is going to be index.js. And I close that opening tag, and then I have my close script tag. And so whereas before I typed a bunch of code in between the two script tags, now what I'm doing is I have this script tag and I say, hey, I want you to go and load this source called index.js. And provided that this file is located in the same location, it's going to find it and execute it. So notice I haven't saved this. We're going to save it. I'm going to come back into here and I run it, and it runs exactly the same. All I've done is I've taken the actual script and moved it into a separate file. And that's it. Now we can write JavaScript inside the web pages that we develop. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I encourage you to play around with this and experiment. Have a great day.